Hi, I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're going to look at Chapter 8 of Global Strategic Management, and the focus is on global strategic alliances. Um, Global strategic alliances and joint ventures are important, and they're key ways that companies do manage to operate in new markets, new countries, and they're often the vehicle that people use, that companies use to enter especially going into countries where it is more difficult to get in there in terms of creating your own big company, like going there and building a huge company, or sometimes acquisitions or mergers are not as easy to do, or maybe they're not even permitted. So sometimes a company, for a lot of reasons, but particularly in the ease and quickness of doing business in a new market, will opt for strategic alliance and joint venture. The next chapter will look at mergers and acquisitions, where some of this is repeated a bit, I have to say. So anyway, let's have a look at this. An alliance or a joint venture is basically the combination of two or more companies to achieve their strategic goals. Now, why would they do that? Why would companies make an alliance or a joint venture? And there are four basic reasons. They want to get into the market, as we just said. Resource acquisition. In other words, sometimes you'll do an alliance with someone or a joint venture with another company because they have something you don't have. They have either people, expertise, or control of a market share that you don't have, and you can get access to it or grab hold of it through an alliance or a joint venture without having, it's the quickest way to do that. Resource leveraging. Sometimes companies have resources. They have either the components of production, or they have technology, they have research and development, they have people that are underutilized in terms of their potential. They may be fully employed, but now they've done something, they could expand that. So they think, well, we've developed this technology, let's use that, and one way they could implement it and make money off it is through an alliance or a joint venture. And for global competitiveness, you'll find that sometimes certain companies, they want to be competing all across the board, and they know, and one of their main competitors in a certain market, they want to be there too, and so they're thinking, I want to be there, I want to get in there, I've got to be, if I'm Ford, I've got to be where Mercedes is, for example, and so you think, well, how can I get in that country quickly and compete? And maybe it's through an alliance, a joint venture, when other forms aren't available. So they'll do that to maintain their competitiveness. Sometimes, just for the visibility of being all places that you find. Well, one way I can say, maybe it's difficult to do business in Japan, for example, for a lot of companies, but I can have a rep office there, I can have an alliance there, I can have a joint venture. My name is there. If you look at the phone book, I'm there. I can put on our global map that we're there, but we're not huge there because it's difficult, but we are present at some level. So the reason behind this is fairly simple. It's an exchange of a market or resource for perceived value, financial and technological. Now, alliances are less costly and less of a commitment than even a joint venture, and far less than either a standalone going in with your massive amount of people and infrastructure, or an acquisition or merger. So sometimes alliance is either a first way in that leads to other things, or a way that you find that's my end game. As long as I have a partner that I can work with in a place, I don't need to have more than that, or a lot of investment or risk taking that I would come to regret later on. Okay, so when you look at what am I going to do, you look at these kind of questions. What are the benefits of the alliance? And these are, will the alliance be effective? How should the alliance be organized and staffed? How should we implement the alliance? How do we ensure effective cooperation? And is there cultural, organizational capabilities, and strategic goal fit between the partners? So we've talked a bit about if you've seen it, we are talking from time to time about strategy formation, and these are the kind of questions that you ask in strategy, and to identify the gaps in what you have, or you don't have, that you wish you had, that you expected to have, that didn't get there, or that you need to have and can't get there with your own resources. You have these kind of gaps. And sometimes you'll say, well, I can fill that gap. Whenever you have a gap in your business, a gap created by the difference between what you want and what you have to come up with ideas how to fill that. And one of the ideas could be a strategic alliance or a joint venture. So like any other element of business, when there's that gap, you think of how can I fix it? And in some cases, this is your answer. And then you'll see, and then the way to see if that answer might be relevant or effective, you ask yourself these questions. What would be the benefits? Will it work? How can I organize and staff it? That's really important. You need to have people around that you can say that person's in charge of that, and they'll work with me on this and are responsible for this. Otherwise, you won't get very far. So these are the strategic questions you ask when you're faced with a problem, which is your gap, and where your solution you believe can be an alliance or a joint venture. These are some other questions you have to ask. Whenever you do these kind of alliances and joint ventures, they're more contractually based. You don't have all the components of the ownership by any means. So you think, for how are the costs and income going to be shared? How are profits going to be distributed? Where do they go? Because it can make a big difference, in terms of taxation and future ability to invest those funds where they're paid. Sometimes some countries, you have to register your initial investment or thing. Otherwise, it's difficult to get the money out. So how does all it work? You need to know that for sure, so you make sure that you're be able to recover what you expect to recover from that business. And how are tasks and responsibilities allocated and monitored? You can see that these are potentially areas of problem. And what you need to do is have a solid contract that everybody understands what they're going to be, what they expect, their goals and responsibilities, and especially how the money is going to be divided and spent. All of us in business have looked at these things, and you go quite a long way sometimes, and you realize, that's too much money to be spending, or I'm doing all this and it's not going to get anything out of it. One thing you have to avoid in business is doing something that, even if it works, doesn't work well enough to make it worthwhile. Some things are just too small to be good. Even if they're profitable, it's a tiny bit of money, and then probably outweighed by the potential risk of taking that. So you want to do this, and also use your strategic thinking for this. You will see in the next chapter, next talk, about this a little bit more. But basically, alliances and joint ventures are difficult to maintain over time. They have declining mutual benefits. The agendas can be different. The goals are different. There are a lot of different business practices involved, etc. And there's a high dependency upon people. The original idea, the original deal negotiators may have a view and a concept in mind that the next group of people that come in to replace them, based on getting promoted or quitting or whatever, don't share that. And so they think, what were they thinking? I don't feel like doing this. I don't even like that person I'm supposed to be dealing with. So I don't want to deal with them. And I've got another group that's appealing to me for the same thing and less, and I know them, etc. So they're difficult to maintain. Under 50% perform as originally expected. And a lot of it's based on this. It's like anything else, it's very difficult to make sure that you and another person and you and another company have the same agenda. It's much better to say very clearly, I know you want this, I want this. How can we make that happen? Then rather than pretend that I want what you want. That's almost never going to be the case. Much better to just clearly say, our goal for this joint venture is to make money doing this. And we know we can't operate in this country, whatever, without you here, and say, what do you want? And they tell you very clearly. If you have clear goals that aren't stepping over each other, you have a better chance. I think that's it for this. These issues, these problems hold true for most forms of joint ventures, light forms of mergers, etc. And we'll see, and you'll see in the next lecture on some of the things that the pre-deal, the deal, and the post-deal issues that do affect the ability for a joint venture, an alliance, or anything similar to produce as expected over time. And you want to strive hard in your career to be well aware of those ahead of time, avoid them, and make sure it works. And we'll talk about that next one on how it can work better. But a lot of it is this original thing, to make sure the agendas are there, the benefits are there, and that the contract is well written and very clear on who does what and who gets what for doing what over time. All right, thanks a lot. Talk to you soon.